All right, so today we're going to talk about one of the more popular forms of business structure. If you own a business now, you're involved in the business at a high level, you could be involved in a number of different structures. You know, it could be a solo practitioner, meaning one person's doing it all. You could be involved in a partnership, you and someone else, or you and a group of people. You can be involved in some type of a merger with two companies or a corporate structure, a franchise operation. These are all various business structures that all have advantages and disadvantages. I'm going to talk to you today about partnerships because partnerships are predominantly what LLCs are made out of. And if you have a law firm, it's an LLP, but they're very popular. They're easy ways for people to get together and expand the scope of their business by pooling resources and things of that nature. But they're also fraught with problems. In fact, the business partnership has the highest rate of failure of any structure going. It's about 70%. And one of the big reasons for that is picking people to go into partnership with that don't end up being the best match for you. And sometimes you don't see this right on. Sometimes it unfolds over time. And so what I want to talk to you today about is if you're in a situation like that where you have a business partner that is what I call gone rogue, meaning they're not sticking with the plan, they're not honoring decisions between you and them. They might even be making decisions on their own or doing things that are more beneficial to them than necessarily the business that you guys have come together over. When you have partners that start going rogue like that, it can be huge problems, which ultimately will end up in dissolution of some kind. But if you're not at that end, if it hasn't gone on so long that there's just no way out, there's things that you can do to help you right the ship, bring it back. And so what I thought I would do today is kind of split the broadcast between two main areas. One, what if you're in a situation now and your partner's gone rogue on you? All right, what do you do? What things can you do to kind of bring things back on track? So I'm going to go through a few of those things because that may be what people that have signed up today to watch this are really interested in. But the second half, I'm going to talk about if you haven't gotten a partner yet, or you're looking to get another partner, what should you be doing to make sure you don't run into a mismatch at some point in the future? So let's talk first about what happens if your business partner is starting to go rogue on you. And let's just talk a little bit about what that actually means. In any kind of business partnership, the people who are involved in the partnership, if they make decisions in tandem, meaning collectively they both agree, or if one goes off and makes a significant decision, both people or all people involved are responsible legally. So if someone that's a partner of yours goes out and signs a lease for a new office on behalf of the company that you guys are both involved in, you're both on the hook for that. If they get into any issues that cause clients to sue the company, you guys are both on the hook for the outcome of that lawsuit. So getting people to work with that will honor you and honor the reason for getting together is paramount. Now, if you should start to see that the person you've been working with is not really adhering to the game plan, and that could be a lot of things. It could be that all of a sudden they're not really communicating anymore, or they're not communicating on the right things, or they might be way too critical of some of the direction that you guys have already established that's right for the business. And it's okay to have differences of opinion, but at some point you've got to come together and make a decision and move forward. And people that tend to start going rogue, the reason they do it is because somewhere along the line they've woken up to the fact that what they signed up for is not really what they want, and they don't see enough boundaries or enough guidelines or things in place to hold them where they committed to. It's like, okay, if I run off the ranch here and do what I want, nobody's going to hold me accountable. And that promotes that whole rogue type behavior. So if you're in that kind of a situation, what you really need to do, very first thing I would do, is I would dig out the partnership agreement or the operating agreement that both of you signed on to when you came together as partners. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, what operating agreement? What partnership agreement? And unfortunately, that all too often is really common with a lot of partnerships. They bypass the legalities and the legal structure of, getting an attorney to sit down and put together a formal document that both people identify and agree with, they decide to sidestep that because, gee, they've known this person since they were kids, or this is a family member, or this is somebody I met a year ago and I really like them and they're really good, and so they would make a good partner. So all you've done is sidestep the protections that are out there available for you to keep you from getting into this situation. Now, if you have a partner agreement, the first thing you need to do is go back and look at it and say, gee, what did we sign on to? Because, like a lot of documents that businesses create when they start, they go in a drawer, they go in a book someplace, and you may be operating for a year or more and never go back and look at those. You need to go back and look at that and figure out exactly what the parameters of operating as a partner were when you all came together and agreed to be partners in business. So take a look at that and make sure you understand exactly what the rules to the road were, because partnership agreements basically establish financial liability, decision making, ownership, all the things that are central to keeping two people or more than two people together going in one direction and being held accountable for the entity that they're now a part of. The second thing you want to do is start documenting what it is you want and what it is you want for the business. Because like I said right off the bat, the reason most people go rogue is because they don't see anything that they signed up for happening. And it's like, well, why should I hang around here? Why should I keep following this plan? It's not working. It's not going where I thought it was going to go. So they start going off and doing whatever they think is going to work for them in the moment. You have to really start sitting down and getting a little more formal with your documentation and with the things that you're getting into agreements on and scheduling and having meetings over and making decisions on. All of that needs to be documented. And I'll tell you in a bit why that's important early on. The next thing you want to do is craft a written plan that guides your direction. Now, you might be thinking, well, duh, wouldn't everybody do that? No, you'd be surprised at the number of businesses of all shapes and sizes that don't put together a formal written plan of here's where we want to go, here are the things we're going to have to accomplish on the way, who's going to do what and at what time frames they're going to make it happen. They don't do that. It's like, well, everybody got together and had a conversation. We're all in agreement. We all feel the same way, so we know what we're doing. Why do we need to have it in writing? You need to have it in writing because business entities and partnerships are fundamentally legal entities. You're bound together, and at some point, if things don't work well, you're going to end up having attorneys involved in helping you separate things out. So it's real important to get a plan together. The other practical reason for doing this is if your partner has decided to kind of leak off the trail a little bit, it's probably because they're not seeing any evidence of any formalized direction taking place. One of the ways to eventually bring them back is to start introducing formalized plans that go back to the original reason for the partnership and basically support the operating agreement that you guys put in place. And now they can see that there is a plan in effect and there's a reason for them to come back and work with you, not work against you. Then you want to take charge of your financials. All right. This is a big one. And most of the time when people start to realize and they get that early feeling, they don't really do anything about it. They just think it might go away, or they try some behavioral things that might bring, two or more people back together. But most of the time, people don't get into their financials early enough to see, has any damage already been created? Has that individual made a decision or is gotten into some spending habits with the company's finances that I'm completely unaware of? So it's real important that if you feel things are unraveling, that you jump into those finances quick. Get updates from your bookkeeper, get your CPA to take a look at things. Make sure that everything that has been done up to that point is something that you've already known about or is within the guidelines of what you guys are doing as a business. But most of the time, when people don't do that and the other partner starts to get, the idea that maybe things are not going well and they may not come back, that's where the financial shenanigans start to happen. You don't want to let that happen. You want to get a hold of your finances quick. Schedule specific times to discuss business issues. Here's another area I find that really leads to people, kind of drifting from the original concept of being in a partnership. There's no regular formal meetings to sit down and talk about the business itself. Meetings take place in the hallway or in one person's office, or whenever you want to exchange information or tell somebody about something that happened. That doesn't constitute a formal business meeting. A formal business meeting is when you get together. Right now it would be Zoom or on a phone, but in most cases you'd be in somebody's office. It'd be a stated day and time for a certain period of time. You'd have an agenda, and you'd be talking about things that are fundamental to moving the business forward. When you don't do those things because you don't really feel it's necessary, that's when you can start having problems with one or more people involved in the partnership not really taking things that serious. So that's what I suggest. Once you get in writing exactly what it is you want going forward with your business and for yourself, you develop that plan and you start having these meetings. Now you're starting to kind of recreate the environment of your business that probably all of you were involved in when you first sat down and decided to be partners. That has to come back. And 9 times out of 10, that's what's gone. That's led to people kind of shifting their thoughts about why they're there and what they really need to be doing. Now, here's one area that tends to inflame a lot of bad partnership situations, and one that I always tell people to try to resist. It's resist the overt behavior patterns of the person that's gone rogue trying to control you. And what they'll typically do is they'll start trying to sway you to their way of thinking as opposed to what's good for the business. They will be making excuses for things they did in isolation without bringing you in, especially if it was important decisions. So they'll start trying to pave the way for things that are beneficial to them and get you off their back. And that can sometimes be very, very dramatic. It can be very aggressive. Depends on the natural personality of the individual that you've partnered up with. But you'll notice an escalation in how they behave when they start to realize they're having to protect the situation that they've created for themselves. And what you don't want to do is get caught up in the drama and be at loggerheads, be fighting all the time. You've got to try to resist that. Keep a cool head. Stay focused on the plan. Stay focused on the daily rigor that's driving the business, and resist the temptation to dive into the same pool with them and be fighting it out all the time, because it won't serve you well. Here's the last one, and it's the hardest one for people that are in these kind of situations to realize. Under your best efforts, and even if you've sought the counsel of attorneys, executive coaches, I'm in this all the time. That's why I feel like I can speak on this today. If you're in this situation and you really kind of feel like, man, this is not coming back. It's gone too far. There's been too much damage, either from the relationship or from financial issues that have taken place as a result of what's happened. You may have to come to the conclusion that the only viable way is walking away. And that's a hard thing to do. And I would never recommend anybody do that first off. But at some point, you may have to be prepared to do that. And if that's the case, that's when you have to sit down with an attorney, with whatever documents or agreements you've put together that started your partnership, and really take a look at what has to happen to dissolve the partnership, dissolution of the partnership. That may be your last, your last step, if in fact none of the other things that I talked about bring that individual back. I can tell you, if you're really, really earnest about wanting to save the partnership and get everybody back on the same lane of the highway, most of what I've told you will work. It needs a little time, but it will get people reinvigorated and kind of get them recommitted to the reason why they signed up to be in the partnership to start with. So there's a lot of work on your end, but the alternative to that is walking away. And sometimes that can be very costly. Emotionally, it can be very devastating. It's not something I would start off with, but you have to realize that under the best of circumstances, that may be something you have to consider if nothing else works. All right, so that's what you have to really look at to try to deal with and hopefully turn around a partner that's gone rogue. Somebody that's kind of basically decided that the original reason for the partnership isn't really important anymore, and the only thing that's important to them is what's beneficial to them. Those are the kind of things you have to work on. I want to spend the rest of our time here talking about what to do to prepare not to get into that situation. And there's a lot of things you can do. And quite honestly, when you're selecting a partner, the vast majority of your time up front should be spent vetting some of the things I'm getting ready to tell you, because that can keep you from having to go down the road of working with somebody that you've kind of, for lack of a better term, fallen out of love with. All right, and that's kind of what it is. Business partnerships they're like marriages. You know, you've wed yourself to somebody for your combined future benefit. All right, so here are the things that I suggest you do to help you find the ideal partner for you. All right, and recognize that going through this list, there's no time stamp on it. It takes as long as it takes for you to find somebody that meets your standards of criteria and you can live with and build a business with. So first thing you want to do is ask yourself, what are you looking for in a partner? It's basically the same as putting a job description for an employee that you might need to hire. Think about, what's the reason that I'm taking a partner on? You'd be amazed at the things that people decide to get into partnerships for. Some people decide that they need somebody else to bring in an infusion of money or resources to help them out. They've exhausted whatever they need in order to expand their business. Maybe they've run out of contacts, or they've run out of things that they know they need, and they don't really want to spend the time developing them. They're just going to go out and find somebody that already has that. That's not the best reason for getting a partner, but a lot of people do that. Sometimes it's just because you just got tired of running the business by yourself and you want some other people around you to share in everything that's going on. And so you may, look at a family member. You may look at a close friend that you've networked with and known for a number of years. There's a lot of things like, sometimes you're going to look for somebody that might have a certain level of market notoriety and expertise that can basically be the future brand, the future face of the business, and help pull it along because you're not able to do that yourself. So you really have to sit down and say, what is it I want to bring a partner in for? Be honest. Talk to other people if you need. Talk to people that have already been in partnerships and figure out what it was that they wanted, and after they went through that, did they in fact get it? You have to be really, really clear about why you want to be in a partnership before you start going out and looking for that ideal partner. Number two, what do you know about the person? Past your social circles and lunches and breakfasts and other kinds of things you might have had. What do you know about the individual? What do you know about their background? What do you know about their reputation in the market? What do you know about any kind of past business ventures that they've been in? If you run into somebody and you think they're really great and they're talking partnership too, and all of a sudden you find out that the last 3 businesses they were in went down in flames, is that somebody you want to bring in? Is the 4th time going to be the magic time? I don't know, but that would concern me. So those are the kind of things you really have to know who these folks are, more than just what shows up on their business card or on their Facebook account. Do their values match yours? Do you really know what you value? If you value hard work and you value honesty and you value integrity, especially if you're in a professional service business where you're serving clients, your integrity drives most of this stuff. If people don't trust you, they're probably not going to do business with you unless they absolutely have to. And I don't really know of too many businesses today where you have to do business with somebody whether you like them or not. So you have to really get your values down. Write them down. Put them down and get really comfortable with what it is you believe in and what it is you support, because you're going to want to find someone else that has most of those things on their list as well. If you do, that will save you all kind of problems later on when you get into really difficult decision-making situations and you have to rely on core values to guide you. Where are you going to go with this? Number 4, will they bring an experience and skills that are complementary to yours? Most of the time, great partnerships are a combination of people that all bring various specialties to the business so that there's not a lot of overlap. Doesn't mean you can't have complementary skills, but there's not a lot of overlap, but these are needed skills. These are skills that your new business is going to depend on, and these people not only have the experience and the skill set, but they're willing to own that area of responsibility. So as an example, if you get to, let's just say you have a financial background, you've been a CFO pretty much all your career, and you want to start a company, and you want to bring somebody in that's got sales and marketing experience, because as a CEO or a CFO, that's not really your game. but you need somebody to be the out-facing person to the customers, to the marketplace, to drive the revenue. That's actually a pretty good combination to get together, as long as both of you are really, really seated in what you bring to the party and you're willing to take full ownership for operating those areas. So if you're the CFO and you bring this, this VP of sales and marketing from some other related company on, and you find out all of a sudden that, well, they really haven't made a phone call or sold anything in 15 years, it's a problem. You really have to know them well and know that they're willing to actually take ownership for the experiences and the skills they're bringing to that new relationship, to that new partnership. What other projects or ventures are they involved in? I run into this every so often, where sometimes people in certain marketplaces or certain industries just end up being a magnet for everybody else that wants to partner up with them and be able to grow their business on that person's, either their notoriety, their expertise, their experience, whatever. And so all of a sudden you find out that this person has got a partnership with person A over here, but then they've had a partnership for the last 18 months with Mr. B, and they have one for 3 years with Miss C. So they've got their fingers in a lot of different things. So now you've got to ask yourself, if I bring this person on as a partner, are they going to be an active operating partner? Are they going to participate in doing the work and growing the business? Or are they going to be so fragmented that I'm going to be priority number 4 in the lineup of all the other businesses that they've got their fingers in? You really have to know that up front, because if you don't, and you find out later on, it may just be a lack of time that causes them not to fulfill whatever promises or commitments they made to join your partnership. A big one here, how do they communicate? All right, are they open? Are they intentional? Do they tell you everything that you need to know? Are they solution focused? Here's one that I find gets in the way a lot of times, and it is one critical element to starting to see when people are going rogue or they're leaking off the track. If when you have business discussions or conversation about what's going on in the business, are they, after they've given you their opinion and you've debated, what the situation is and what the options are they focused on getting a solution agreed upon and moving forward? Or are they just focused on complaining and bringing back the problems over and over and over again? If you're in a situation where you've got partners that are like that, nothing will ever get done, because they will never get to a point of a solution. They'll just always be regurgitating the problem. And if they're like that, or maybe they didn't start like that, but they're moving in that direction, that's a clear indication that they're starting to go rogue. You need to find someone who's solution oriented. They can dig in deep. They can figure out what the problem is. They can discuss options. But when you guys pick one that's best for your organization, you run with it. And you're not going back in history and talking about what used to happen or why we got here. You're focused on going forward. You need to make sure you have somebody that has communication patterns and skills that match yours and are beneficial to keeping information and situations going between all parties so you don't get stuck. Do they have a track record that's free of financial or relationship issues? Here's a big one. If you find out that the person you're courting for a partnership has been bankrupt a couple times, not a good sign. If they've had other partnerships that have gone down in flames, you might want to figure out why that happened. There's a real good chance that over time this has become a pattern that they're probably not going to break. And if that's the case, you don't want to invite somebody into your business that potentially has those same kinds of behaviors, because it's just a matter of time before it shows up in your area again. The last one, are they willing to commit to an operating or partnership agreement? As I started this program by talking, if you don't have documents that guide how you make decisions, how liability is shared, how ownership and authority and all this kind of stuff are dealt out, if you don't have an operating agreement or a partnership agreement that guides you in that area and holds everybody accountable, you're just asking for problems later on. And most of the times they're going to show up faster than you realize. So if you get to the point where you're having serious discussions about coming together as a business partnership and they're avoiding wanting to make it official, that's a huge red flag. That's probably a stopper at that point. You definitely don't want to, just because you're saving money, not bring an attorney on and have them craft a really good partnership. And one of the major elements of a partnership is what happens if it doesn't work? How do we get out of it? You know, that's got to be there. And if you don't have it written down, and if it's not sanctioned and it's not official, then you don't have that option should you find out later on that despite your best efforts, it's just not going to last. So I hope those have been helpful. I hope if you're currently in a situation where as partners you're not agreeing and you're not working well together, you're able to get past that and move forward. But if you're now thinking about a partnership and you haven't done one before, take a lot of these steps to heart, because it will save you huge amounts of anguish and sleepless nights and money later on because you didn't pick the right person to work with you. Thanks for being with us today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If any of what I've talked about today is something that is hitting a nerve with you and you'd like to have a little more detailed conversation about your situation, by all means, connect up with me. You can do it on the Chamber's Facebook page, or my business is Growth Source Coaching. If you go to my website, there's little boxes there where you can sign up and we can have a conversation. And I'll be glad to help you.